I thought I knew everything about the woman I married, the way she smiled, her favorite songs, the stories she told about her day. But one evening, a single text on her phone made my heart race, and then the unthinkable began to unfold. Ryan Whitman's life seemed like something out of a storybook. As a talented architect, he spent his days designing dream homes while enjoying the satisfaction of returning to his own, a cozy suburban house he shared with his beautiful wife, Sophia, and their playful 8-year-old daughter, Emma. Sophia, a successful marketing executive, often joked about how her hectic job contrasted with Ryan's more structured routine. Despite her frequent travels for work, they had built a life filled with love and laughter. Sophia's travels were never a point of contention. Ryan admired her ambition and took pride in being the stable anchor at home. Every time she returned from a trip, she brought back thoughtful gifts for Emma and exciting stories about the city she visited. They shared everything, or so Ryan thought. One evening, as they sat together on the couch after dinner, Sophia mentioned another upcoming business trip. "I'll be in Chicago this time," she said casually, her eyes briefly flickering away from his. Ryan noticed the subtle shift but dismissed it as fatigue. "Chicago again, huh? They must really love your ideas," Ryan teased, earning a soft smile from her. He kissed her on the forehead and tucked Emma into bed that night, feeling a familiar sense of contentment. But something about Sophia's tone stayed with him. A small, nagging voice whispered that something wasn't quite right. Ryan shook it off, chalking it up to overthinking. After all, he trusted Sophia implicitly. Why wouldn't he? They were partners in every sense of the word, or so he believed. A few days after Sophia left for her trip, Ryan was tidying up the living room when he spotted Emma playing with a familiar device, Sophia's old phone. The sight brought a smile to his face. "What are you doing, pumpkin?" he asked. "Playing a game," Emma replied, her fingers tapping away at the screen. Curious, Ryan picked up the phone when Emma wandered off to grab her crayons. He scrolled through the apps, smiling at the old photos and reminders of their life together. But then he found something he wasn't expecting: a series of text messages in a thread she hadn't deleted. The contact name was unfamiliar, JB. Ryan frowned, thinking it might be a work colleague, but the tone of the messages gave him pause. "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was unforgettable. Are we still on for the weekend? Same place." Ryan's heart began to race. He tried to rationalize what he was reading. Maybe it was a professional relationship that sounded overly friendly. Maybe it was from a long time ago, but the timestamp on the last message was only 2 weeks old. He set the phone down, his mind racing. Should he call her? Should he ask her about the messages? But what if it was nothing, and he'd just come off as paranoid? Ryan decided to keep quiet for now, convincing himself that there must be a logical explanation. That night, as he lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, the first seed of doubt had been planted. It was a small crack in the foundation of their marriage, but it wouldn't stay small for long. Sophia returned from her trip with her usual cheerful demeanor. She greeted Ryan with a warm hug and kissed Emma, who had been counting the days until her mother was home. Watching her interact with their daughter, Ryan felt a pang of guilt. The messages he found lingered in his mind, but he convinced himself that he was being unfair. Sophia had always been a devoted wife and mother. Why doubt her now? But as the days passed, more subtle discrepancies began to emerge. One evening, Ryan noticed a dinner receipt sticking out of Sophia's purse. It listed a lavish restaurant not in Chicago, where she had claimed to be, but in a small beach town 2 states away. "Hey, this isn't in Chicago," Ryan said casually, holding up the receipt during dinner prep. Sophia barely looked up. "Oh, that must have been when the client meeting got moved. I didn't think to tell you sorry. It was all very last minute," she replied, effortlessly dismissing his concern. Her explanation was smooth, almost too smooth, and Ryan felt a slight chill. The woman he trusted implicitly had just sidestepped the question with practiced ease. That night, he noticed more unusual charges on their shared credit card: an unfamiliar hotel, spa services, and a boutique clothing store in the same beach town. Maybe it's all part of her job, Ryan thought, but the gnawing doubt grew louder. Sophia had always been transparent about her work, but now there were cracks in her stories that didn't add up. His intuition whispered a warning, but he wasn't ready to face it, not yet. One quiet Saturday morning, Ryan was flipping pancakes in the kitchen while Emma sat at the counter, doodling in her notebook. As she colored, she began chatting about her week, her words flowing freely as children's often do. "Mommy showed me a picture of her new friend," Emma said between bites of syrup-covered pancakes. Ryan froze mid-flip. "Oh? A new friend?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. "Yeah, on her iPad. He was funny, he had a beard. They were at the beach. It looks so cool," Emma said, giggling. Ryan's mind raced. A man with a beard? At the beach? Sophia had never mentioned any new co-workers or trips to the beach during her travels. He forced a smile and gently asked, "Did Mommy say who he was?" Emma shrugged, too engrossed in her drawing to notice her father's growing discomfort. "No, but she laughed a lot. They looked happy." Ryan's stomach churned. He felt a mix of fear and anger, though he kept it hidden from Emma. As he cleaned up the breakfast dishes, his mind replayed her innocent words over and over. Sophia had shown their daughter a photo of another man, a photo she hadn't shared with him. Something was wrong. Very wrong. That evening, Ryan decided he couldn't keep his concerns to himself any longer. He needed answers. He rehearsed his words in the bathroom mirror, his reflection staring back with a mix of determination and dread. When Sophia walked through the door that night, she was radiant as always. "Hey, love," she said, placing a kiss on his cheek and handing him a small package. "I brought you some coffee from that cafe you love in Chicago." Her gesture caught him off guard. How could someone so thoughtful, so warm, be hiding something so painful? As she moved about the kitchen, chatting about her trip, Ryan found himself frozen. The questions he had planned to ask suddenly felt impossible to voice. "What's wrong?" Sophia asked, sensing his hesitation. "Nothing, just tired," he lied, forcing a smile. She came over and wrapped her arms around him. "You work too hard," she teased, her voice filled with affection. Ryan felt his resolve crumble. How could he accuse her of something so terrible without solid proof? What if he was wrong? The doubt gnawed at him, but he decided to hold off just for a little while longer. That night, as Sophia slept soundly beside him, Ryan lay awake, his mind swirling with questions he was too afraid to ask. The answers were out there, just beyond his reach, waiting to shatter the life they had built together. Ryan couldn't carry the weight of his suspicions alone any longer. He needed an outside perspective, someone who could help him navigate the mess his mind had become. That's when he thought of Mia Everett, his closest friend and a confidant who had known him since college. Mia was sharp, pragmatic, and fiercely loyal, exactly the person Ryan needed in his corner. One evening, after putting Emma to bed, Ryan invited Mia over under the pretense of needing advice on a work project. But as they sat on the patio with glasses of wine, Ryan blurted out everything: the text messages, the odd receipts, Emma's innocent comments, and the growing pit of dread in his stomach. Mia listened intently, her brows furrowed in concern. When he finished, she leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "Ryan, if you really think something's going on, you can't keep second-guessing yourself. You need answers." "I know," Ryan said, his voice heavy with resignation. "But I don't even know where to start. What if I'm wrong? What if I ruin everything over a misunderstanding?" Mia placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "You're not jumping to conclusions, Ryan. You're connecting dots that don't add up. If you want clarity, you need proof, real proof." Together, they began mapping out Sophia's travel history. Mia had the idea to cross-reference the cities Sophia claimed to visit with the timestamps on her credit card charges. At first, nothing stood out, but as they dug deeper, the discrepancies became glaring. Sophia's hotel reservations didn't match her supposed locations, and there were unexplained charges in places she hadn't mentioned at all. Then there was the clincher, a boutique clothing store in a small beach town. Ryan's stomach sank as he remembered Emma's description of the photo Sophia had shown her. It was the same town where Sophia had allegedly met with clients during her last trip. "Ryan, this isn't just a coincidence," Mia said, her voice tinged with sympathy. "Something's going on. You need to confront her or follow her next time she goes on one of these trips." Ryan nodded, his resolve hardening. He couldn't let this continue. He needed the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Sophia's next trip came sooner than Ryan had anticipated. She casually mentioned over dinner that she'd be heading to Chicago again for a marketing summit. Ryan's heart raced, but he kept his composure. "Sounds exciting," he said, masking his anxiety. This time he had a plan. Unknown to Sophia, she had left a GPS tracking app active on her phone, a feature they had once used to locate Emma's misplaced tablet. Ryan accessed it the evening she left, expecting to see her heading toward the airport. Instead, the location pinged somewhere far more unexpected, a private villa in a remote coastal town. His pulse quickened as he stared at the screen. There was no marketing summit in Chicago. Sophia wasn't even in the same state. Ryan's chest tightened as the reality began to sink in. The next day, after dropping Emma at a friend's house, Ryan got in his car and drove to the address the GPS had provided. The journey felt surreal, each mile stretching out endlessly as his mind raced with possibilities. He rehearsed what he would say, how he would confront her, but nothing could prepare him for what he was about to see. When he arrived, the villa was nestled in a quiet, picturesque area. Through the large, open windows, he saw Sophia laughing with a man. She was seated on a plush couch, a glass of wine in her hand, her body language relaxed and intimate. The man, a bearded figure Ryan immediately recognized as Jordan Blake, one of Sophia's co-workers, was sitting close, his hand resting lightly on her arm. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. His world shattered in an instant. Every doubt, every suspicion, every sleepless night suddenly made sense. The woman he had loved for over a decade, the mother of his child, was leading a double life. Summoning his courage, Ryan knocked on the door. The sound echoed in the quiet evening air, and he saw Sophia's expression shift from laughter to shock as she realized who was standing on the other side. "Ryan," she whispered, her face pale. "Don't bother," he said, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "I've seen enough." For a moment, everything was still. The silence between them was louder than any argument they could have had. Then, without another word, Ryan turned and walked away, leaving Sophia and Jordan frozen in the doorway. As he drove back home, tears blurred his vision. He had found the answers he was looking for, but the truth came at a cost he wasn't sure he could bear. His perfect world had crumbled, and there was no going back. The drive home felt endless, each mile weighed down by the realization that his life would never be the same. Ryan replayed the scene at the villa in his mind, the laughter, the closeness, and the undeniable betrayal. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He wasn't sure if he was angrier at Sophia for her deceit, or at himself for not seeing the signs sooner. When he got home, the quietness of the house amplified his pain. Emma was still at her friend's house, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in her family. Ryan sat on the couch, staring at nothing in particular, feeling the weight of years of trust and love shatter into pieces. Sophia returned late that evening. The sound of her key turning in the lock sent a surge of anger and heartbreak through him. She stepped inside, her face pale and tense. "Ryan," she started, but he held up a hand, silencing her. "Don't," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't insult me with excuses." For a moment, Sophia just stood there, tears filling her eyes. Then, as if the dam had broken, she began to speak. She admitted to the affair, her voice trembling with guilt and regret. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt you or Emma." Her words felt hollow to Ryan. "You didn't mean to hurt us? You lied, Sophia. You lied to me, to Emma, to yourself. How could you?" Sophia sobbed, trying to explain the loneliness she felt, the pressures of her job, and how the affair had spiraled out of control. But to Ryan, her reasons felt like excuses. The damage was done. "I need time," he said finally. "Time to figure out what this means for us, if there even is an us anymore." Sophia nodded, her tears streaming silently down her face. She retreated to the guest room, leaving Ryan alone with the unbearable weight of their shattered marriage. In the days that followed, Ryan tried to focus on Emma, determined to protect her from the chaos unfolding between her parents. He shielded her from their arguments and kept her routine as normal as possible. But the strain was evident. Even Emma noticed that her parents were quieter, more distant. "Is Mommy mad at you?" she asked one evening, her innocent eyes searching his face for answers. Ryan forced a smile. "No, sweetheart. Mommy and I are just figuring some things out." It was a half-truth, one of many he would tell to preserve Emma's happiness. But as the days turned into weeks, the cracks in their family became harder to hide. Sophia tried to make amends, apologizing repeatedly and suggesting couples therapy. Ryan reluctantly agreed, not because he wanted to fix things, but because he wanted to understand. The therapy sessions were emotionally draining, forcing them both to confront painful truths about their relationship. For Ryan, the hardest part was grappling with the duality of Sophia's betrayal. He still loved the woman he had married, but he couldn't reconcile that person with the one who had deceived him so completely. Mia remained a pillar of support, often watching Emma so Ryan could attend therapy or simply have time to himself. "You'll get through this," she assured him. "It might not feel like it now, but you will." And slowly, Ryan began to believe her. Months passed, and while the pain of betrayal lingered, Ryan began to find small moments of hope. He threw himself into his work, rediscovering his passion for architecture. Emma's laughter became his lifeline, a reminder of the innocence and joy that still existed in his world. Sophia, on the other hand, was a shadow of her former self. She had moved out temporarily, giving Ryan the space he needed. They co-parented Emma as best as they could, but their interactions were strained and awkward. One evening, after a particularly successful project presentation, Ryan sat with Mia, reflecting on how far he had come. "I don't know if I'll ever trust her again," he admitted. "You don't have to decide now," Mia said gently. "Healing isn't about making decisions, it's about finding peace with yourself first." Eventually, Ryan made a choice not to forgive Sophia outright, but to let go of the anger that had consumed him. He realized that while their marriage might never recover, he didn't have to carry the burden of her betrayal forever. The day their divorce was finalized, Ryan felt a bittersweet mix of relief and sadness. They agreed to remain amicable for Emma's sake, but the chapter of their life together had officially closed. As Ryan tucked Emma into bed that night, she looked up at him with her bright eyes. "Are we going to be okay, Daddy?" Ryan smiled, brushing her hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine." Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more compelling stories that inspire, heal, and remind us of the strength within us all. Until next time, take care and cherish those you love.